I have now been developing software for 9 years. I have learned a lot of different things along the way, and I would like to share some of them with you. Let's jump right into it. First, imposter syndrome is okay. It's inevitable that you'll feel unprepared when you start a new job or get assigned a project that is going to stretch your abilities and your comfort zone. I figured once I had a couple of years under my belt, that feeling of being inadequate would fade away, but it doesn't. I actually find that being self-aware of your limits and where you can improve both professionally and technically can set you apart from others. If you're feeling anxious or nervous because you're pushing yourself to do new things or take on new responsibilities, that means that you are growing. If I ever find myself getting too comfortable in my job, then that means I'm not progressing and becoming stagnant. Imposter syndrome is what led me to become a solid developer. I was so worried about not being prepared for the programming classes in my first master's degree in financial mathematics that I took a year-long graduate certificate in C++ programming. Imposter syndrome struck again when I took on a technical leadership role managing a team. That's when I started my master's degree in CS to further grow my technical skills. My advice to you is if you feel imposter syndrome, you are more than likely on the right path, and you'll typically find yourself acceptably prepared and knowledgeable to take on the task at hand. The next thing I learned is to start simple. Whenever evaluating a problem you're looking to solve, think about the most straightforward and simplest solution to complete the task. You will still want to follow coding best practices and whatever standards have been laid out by your development teams, but I've seen plenty of people get into trouble by implementing overly complicated solutions or biting off more than they can chew at once. To you, it might look like a clean, elegant solution using a new framework you found online or leveraging a new language feature, but it might actually turn out to be overkill, hard to read, and difficult to maintain for anyone besides yourself. I'm not saying that you should never push boundaries, but you should rather do that after you have a straightforward, easy to read, and maintain solution available. Then you can approach the technical leads on a different solution. Next, you're going to find your value add and lean into it. Learning what you're great at and better than others is absolutely essential to pushing your career forward, especially if you're looking to grow faster than the typical promotion schedule might be. It takes time and working on different types of projects to learn what you're good at. It doesn't always need to be technical skills. It can be understanding the business or the customer needs better than others for a particular pieces of code or feature sets. I was able to find my value by working on a variety of jobs within my department and developing different systems along the way. I work in a derivative hedging function for a large insurance company. I started in operations, then moved to a quantitative analyst role, then moved to become a derivatives trader, and then lastly I settled into a focused software engineering role on the team. I knew that my skills were unique to my path, and it was hard to replicate, so I leaned into it and worked on large, critical projects that needed integration from front office to back office systems. While it is possible to stand out as the best young developer on the team and grow that way, but I think owning more business knowledge and responsibility provides you a clear path forward. The next important thing I learned was to be reliable. This is a really simple thing that you can control, and it's surprisingly something that a lot of people fall short on. It is hard to shake the label of being unreliable once you get it, so it's best to put your best foot forward as soon as possible. Under promise and over deliver is a great principle to live by in your career. Being someone that management can rely on to deliver important projects and tasks without constant supervision is a huge feather in the cap. Projects will miss deadlines, and most of the time will be out of your control, but that doesn't mean that you're helpless. Whenever you see a project slipping, let your leaders know. Clear communication is critical to success and is one of the best ways to avoid disappointing management. Next, learn how to anticipate needs. Once you become an expert on a specific area technically and from a business understanding, the next big leap is to start anticipating the needs of systems upstream or downstream from your task. When you become able to be presented with a problem and you can see the full picture from end to end and start pointing out other system components needed elsewhere, you'll find yourself involved in more high-impact projects and become a go-to person when management wants something done right the first time with minimal items overlooked when it comes to release time. Sometimes people are worried about stepping on toes or aren't confident enough to speak on items outside of their specific task, but constructive and collaborative feedback and ideas should always be well received, unless you work in a toxic environment. In that case, dusting off the resume and finding a new gig is probably a good idea. Next thing I learned is persistence. Not giving up easily takes some time to grow into as you become more experienced, but you will find more often than not an email or question will not be responded to on the first request, especially if you're speaking with someone outside of your direct team. Often you'll need to get an answer to a question from a different team or a vendor to move forward on a task or project. If you don't hear back in a reasonable amount of time, like a couple of days, follow up. If you get no response again, escalate by adding more recipients to the message or let management know that the lack of response and information is blocking your tasks. Corporate communication skills is a delicate dance to learn, but a huge advantage once you have mastered it. Next, be humble. Nothing will turn off others more than being egotistical and not accepting of feedback. Being self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses are very important to be an effective team player. There are times where you definitely need to be assertive when you think someone's going down the wrong path, but it's important to hear them out and have constructive feedback rather than bullying them and making them feel put down. Next, keep learning. One of the great things about being a software engineer is that the field is always changing and there is something new to learn at all times. Staying on top of trends and new features for the software languages you're using is a good idea. You don't need to make it into a huge chore if you don't want to. Reading articles and watching tutorials every now and again is typically sufficient. However, there are great cost-efficient options to learn advanced techniques as a developer. One of these options are pursuing an online master's degree in computer science from a top university like Georgia Tech, Illinois, or UT Austin. I have a whole series of videos covering how to apply these programs if that's something you are interested in. Be sure to check it out after this video. Next, learn how to self-manage and learn how to prioritize. Managing your work efficiently lends itself to being one of the best things you can do to meet one of the earlier pieces of advice in being reliable. The more autonomously you are able to work, the more impactful work you'll receive and the more responsibilities you'll be given, which typically translates into promotions. Learn how to recognize which tasks need to be completed first and can't have shifts in deadlines. And know which tasks are nice to have and can be pushed out if needed for a future release. As you can probably tell, most of the things I've learned have very little to do with technical skills at all. Most developers you will work with have a reasonable skill level technically, but what will separate most is the soft skills and ability to self-manage. You always need to remain a sharp technician, but knowing how to be an efficient corporate citizen will serve you very well. Thanks for sticking around. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and would like similar content in the future. See you in the next one.